This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, February 21st, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning. Bribery, the charge against a former FBI informant.
Alexander Smirnov behind bars while he awaits trial.
Norman Hall covers that story.
The White House is promising a response to Russia over opposition leader Alexei Navalny's death. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The body of a missing 11-year-old girl found in Texas.
That Audrey's body was located.
I'm Clayton Neville.
YouTube mom Ruby Franke was sentenced to serve up to 60 years in prison for a child abuse case. I'm Haya Panjwani.
The Alabama Supreme Court has ruled that frozen embryos created during fertility treatments should be considered children. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
He's eluded police until now.
He's awaiting extradition to New York from Arizona. I'm Julie Walker.
All ahead on America in the Morning. A confidential source who now faces charges of providing false information to the FBI about President Biden and his son Hunter's dealing with a Ukrainian energy company and was also a House GOP impeachment witness, now says what he passed along came directly from Russian intelligence officials. Correspondent Norman Hall reports.
According to federal prosecutors, a former FBI informant charged with making up a multi-million-dollar bribery scheme involving President Joe Biden, his son Hunter, and a Ukrainian energy company had contacts with officials affiliated with Russian intelligence. The alleged contacts, said to be recent and extensive, were introduced as prosecutors urged a judge to keep Alexander Smirnov behind bars while he awaits trial. He's charged with falsely reporting to the FBI that executives associated with the Ukrainian energy company Burisma paid Hunter and Joe Biden $5 million each in 2015 or 2016. The claim has been central to the Republican impeachment inquiry in Congress. Norman Hall, Washington.
The White House says it's preparing new and serious sanctions against Russia following Kremlin opposition leader Alexei Navalny's death in an Arctic prison. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani has the latest.
The reports of his death are further proof of Putin's brutality. It reminds us why our support for Ukraine is so important, because Ukraine is fighting back heroically against Putin's continued brutality.
I told you we'd be announcing sanctions on Russia. We'll have a major package announced on Friday.
National Security spokesman John Kirby says the administration Friday will unveil major sanctions on Moscow, aimed not only at further punishing Vladimir Putin for the Ukraine war as it hits the 2-year mark.
In response, at President Biden's direction, we will be announcing a major sanctions package on Friday of this week to hold Russia accountable for what happened to Mr. Navalny, and quite frankly, for all its actions over the course of this vicious and brutal war that has now raged on for 2 years.
Kirby says the U.S. has not determined how Navalny died last week in an Arctic penal colony, but
we all love to know exactly what happened here, not setting aside the fact that regardless of the actual scientific answer, Mr. Putin's responsible for it.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The search for an 11-year-old Texas girl is over after divers discovered her body in a river not far from where she went missing last week. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports the man believed to be responsible is behind bars.
It was an announcement the small rural Texas community of Livingston feared the most.
I sadly announced that Audrey's body was located at the Trinity River on the U.S. Highway 59.
11-year-old Audrey Cunningham's body was pulled from the Trinity River near her rural hometown outside Houston.
Trinity River Authority slowed down the outflow from the reservoir, and it allowed the water to go down, and her body was discovered there in the water.
Polk County Sheriff Byron Lyons says the suspect, 42-year-old Don Stephen McDougal, gave some information to investigators who were eventually led to the girl's body with other evidence and tips from the public.
And then, yes, there was some points where he did give information, because there were several places that he said that he had went. So it wasn't a location where he said he took her, but there was a incidents where he said these were locations where he had gone.
McDougal already in custody on an unrelated charge.
At this time, we believe the appropriate arrest warrant is going to be for capital murder in the death of Audrey Cunningham. He is currently still in jail under an unrelated felony charge here.
Polk County District Attorney Shelley Sitton says her office stands with police in the search for justice.
The district attorney's office is going to stand right beside them and follow through, and we promise that you can assure that the district attorney's office will be just as dedicated to this case as every one of these law enforcement officers that are standing behind you.
McDougal said to have been a friend of the family's and reportedly lived on a camper on their property. The exact cause of the girl's death still being considered by the medical examiner. I'm Clayton Neville.
Abusing her own child, the charge against a parenting coach. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. Seemingly a calm national forecast today. Welcome back to America in the Morning. AccuWeather.com meteorologist Carl Erickson is in with the outlook.
Well, no major storms are expected across the nation today as the west begins to calm down from the heavy rain and mountain snow from recent days. Although the heaviest rain is now over, most of the west coast will continue to deal with a lot of clouds today, with showers scattered around Washington and Oregon, southward through California and Nevada. Meanwhile, some snow will fall across the Colorado Rockies as well as the mountains of Utah and southern Wyoming, where 1 to 3 inches can accumulate. Some snow will also fall over the mountains of northern Arizona, with Flagstaff picking up a slushy coating to an inch. Some lingering snow showers will fall over the Sierra Nevada, but nothing like the heavy snow from a couple of days ago. Outside of the west, the rest of the nation will have quiet weather today. The northeast will have dry weather with highs in the 30s across northern New England to 40s and 50s across the mid-Atlantic. Partly sunny skies will be common, although some low clouds will try to develop near the coast. It will feel more like spring across the plain states into the southeast with partly sunny skies with more in the way of sunshine from the southern plains along the Gulf Coast states into Florida. Temperatures will be pleasant for this time of the year, ranging from the 40s and 50s across the northern plains and Great Lakes to 60s and 70s across the central plains into the southeast. Once again, the warmest weather in the nation will be found over western and southern parts of Texas with highs well into the 80s this afternoon. As this warmer air advances northward, some strong gusty thunderstorms can develop tonight from northeastern Oklahoma and southeastern Kansas eastward across southern Missouri. A stronger storm could even produce small hail and a damaging wind gust. In Boston today, partly sunny, high 37. Meanwhile, in Denver, mostly cloudy with a high of 58. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Carl Erickson.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. A former Utah-based vlogger who gave parenting advice on YouTube is on her way to prison, found guilty of abusing her own children. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
There won't be any argument about whether prison is the appropriate sentence.
Frankie is a Utah mother of 6 who would give parenting advice on her now discontinued YouTube channel, 8 Passengers. She was charged with 4 out of 6 counts of secondary child abuse for starving and harming 2 of her 6 children.
Given the gravity and circumstances of the offenses, the number of victims, and the history and character and needs of the defendant, that consecutive sentences are appropriate. The court imposes 4 1 to 15-year sentences to be, again, served consecutively for each of the 4 counts of aggravated child abuse.
2 counts were dismissed in December as part of her plea deal. In her December plea deal hearing, Frankie expressed regret for her actions.
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty.
A mental health counselor who had been hired to work with Frankie's youngest son before going into business with Frankie also received a prison sentence on Tuesday of up to 60 years. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Frozen embryos should now be considered children under Alabama state law. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports.
Justices issued the ruling in a pair of wrongful death cases brought by couples who had frozen embryos destroyed in an accident at a fertility clinic. In 2020, a patient wandered into the storage area, picked up several embryos, then dropped them on the floor, killing them. The justices say an 1872 state law allowing parents to sue over the death of a minor child applies to all unborn children, regardless of their location. The ruling brought a rush of warnings from groups and advocates who say it will have sweeping implications for fertility treatments in Alabama. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
The tug of war between the bears and the bulls on Wall Street. Business news next. America in the Morning is back after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. The streaming wars are heating up again, but this time it'll be in a court of law. Sports-centric streaming service Fubo TV filed a lawsuit to block a scheduled launch of a new sports streaming platform, a joint venture including Fox Sports, Warner Brothers Discovery, and ESPN parent Disney. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Fubo TV claims the trio is using their power to force them into not providing the content that their customers want. Fubo lost about a fifth of its value since the new streaming service was announced. In for Jessica Ettinger, CNBC's Peter Schacknow provides Wednesday business.
Walmart and Home Depot are the two latest retail giants to issue quarterly earnings, and for now their fortunes appear to be on differing paths. Walmart reported better than expected profit and revenue and gave an upbeat forecast, and its stock hit an all-time high. What's helping Walmart today is what's helped it in the past, its focus on low prices. Sucharita Kodali, retail analyst at Forrester Research, says Walmart successfully drew customers in with that approach with groceries, and now it is doing the same with pharmaceuticals.
Non-prescription drugs, those OTC drugs, have grown almost 10% year over year from a pricing standpoint. So Walmart is able to really be able to take advantage of that, kind of as you get into things like cold season and now allergy season. That's going to be something that's going to be absolutely helping their top line and their bottom line numbers.
Home Depot also beat Wall Street's estimates for sales and profit, but it issued a somewhat soft forecast. Brian Nagel, senior equity research analyst at Oppenheimer, says Home Depot is a well-run company and its issues stem from outside factors.
I'm still a big believer that a lot of demand was pulled forward into the pandemic. And so we've just got to get past that. And then the other factor, again, not totally unrelated to that, is rates. In my mind, one of the best, as rates moderate, when that eventually happens, Home Depot is really one of the best plays in retail because it's a very rate-sensitive type retailer, just given how consumers are driven to undertake spending.
Investors will be focusing on another high-profile earnings report in today's session, chip maker NVIDIA. The stock has been a Wall Street darling, more than tripling over the past year, but it has fallen the past 3 days. NVIDIA may be a victim of its own success, with the street expecting more and more after a series of blowout earnings reports.
We seem to be in bear territory now in the markets. Peter, what is the prospect for a resumption of a bull run?
It is true that some of the market momentum has faded following the rally, which saw both the Dow and S&P 500 reach multiple record highs. Last week's losses broke a 5-week win streak, and stocks fell again yesterday as the shortened trading week began. But all that may be a good thing, according to J.J. Kinahan, CEO of IG North America.
I don't think investors are overly bullish. We talk perhaps maybe the market's a little bit frothy, et cetera. What you're not seeing is individual investors going out and just, I have to be in, all in. There's no FOMO at the moment, and I think that's really healthy for the market.
The most hopeful sign comes from the latest batch of corporate earnings reports, with 80% of S&P 500 companies beating analyst predictions and forecasting better than expected growth rates. All that, say analysts, a reflection of a still growing economy.
Thank you. CNBC's Peter Schacknow. When we return on America in the Morning, busted suspect accused of horrific crimes behind bars. That story and more after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. The man arrested following the brutal killing of a woman in a New York City hotel may be the prime suspect in a crime spree spanning several states. More on the story from correspondent Julie Walker.
Police in New York City are looking into whether a 26-year-old man arrested for allegedly using an iron to kill a woman in a Soho hotel earlier in the month, and then a few days later in Arizona, carjack and stab another woman, and then the next day pull a female McDonald's worker into a bathroom and stab her, is responsible for even more. NYPD top spokesperson Tariq Shepard on the arrest of Rod El Mansouri.
Anywhere that he's visited there's potential that there are other victims around the country.
Police say al-Mansouri has previous arrests for assault and told cops he hurt 3 additional girls in Florida. He's awaiting extradition to New York from Arizona.
Glad that Arizona PD got this maniac off the streets.
I'm Julie Walker.
Weather in California severe enough to close an airport as the fears of flooding and mudslides increase. Correspondent Jennifer King provides the update.
A wet winter storm has been drenching California, closing a regional airport and trapping people in swollen rivers. It brought clouds, rain, gusty winds, high seas, and snow at elevation. There are flood watches and winter storm warnings across the state. Santa Barbara Airport, set in a flat plain surrounded by creeks, closed Monday after runways flooded. 5 to 10 inches of rain turned placid streams into raging torrents. Ethan Ragsdale with the Santa Barbara Police Department spoke with KEY-TV.
Please stay away from the creeks. They're absolutely dangerous. It is swiftly flowing water.
With a forecast of 2 to 3 feet of snow accumulation, the National Weather Service advised motorists to postpone travel in the Sierra Nevada mountains above 6,800 feet. The front is stalled in Southern California, with flood concerns increasing and rain reaching Las Vegas and southwestern Utah as the day progresses. I'm Jennifer King.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, February 21st, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour,
the United States vetoes a UN resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in the fighting in Gaza. I'm John Stolness in Washington.
Nikki Haley says she's not backing down.
10 days after South Carolina, another 20 states vote.
I'm Haya Panjwani.
Arrests made in the deadly Kansas City Chiefs championship parade shooting. I'm Clayton Neville.
A Massachusetts school board wants the National Guard to step in to keep a local high school safe. I'm Pamela Furrer.
Julian Assange's lawyers have opened a final UK legal challenge. Karen Shamas, London.
The lives of the Beatles will get the movie treatment, but with a twist. I'm Archie Zaraletta with the latest.
Back after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. We know California's been deluged with rain, but what about snow? Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Carl Erickson.
Snow will be difficult to find across the nation today, as most of the central and eastern portion of the U.S. will continue to enjoy dry and mild weather for late February. The only areas where snow will fall today will be across the Colorado Rockies, the Wasatch of Utah, and southern Wyoming. Even here across the mountains, snowfall will not be all that significant, on the order of 1 to 3 inches. Some snow will also fall over the mountains of northern Arizona, with Flagstaff picking up a slushy coating to an inch. Some lingering snow showers will fall over the Sierra Nevada, but nothing like the heavy snow from a couple of days ago. Meanwhile, most of the West Coast will continue to deal with a lot of clouds today, with showers scattered across Washington and Oregon, southward through California and Nevada. However, the recent heavy rain from the past few days is now over. Outside of the West, the rest of the nation will have quiet weather today. It will be mild and spring-like across the Plain States into the southeast, with times of clouds and sunshine, with more in the way of sunny skies from the southern plains and along the Gulf Coast states into Florida. Highs will be nice for this time of the year, ranging from the 40s and 50s across the northern plains and Great Lakes to 60s and 70s across the central plains into the southeast. Once again, the warmest weather in the nation will be found over western and southern Texas, with highs well into the 80s this afternoon. As this warmer air advances northward, watch out for some strong gusty storms later on tonight, especially from northeastern Oklahoma and southeastern Kansas eastward into southern Missouri, where strong gusty winds and some small hail is possible. The Northeast will have dry weather today, with highs in the 30s across northern New England to 40s and 50s across the mid-Atlantic. Partly sunny skies will be common, although some low clouds will develop near the coast. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Carl Erickson.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. The U.S. vetoed a draft resolution in the United Nations Security Council yesterday calling for an immediate ceasefire to the hostilities in Gaza, a move defended by the Biden administration but criticized by some member nations. John Stolness has details from Washington.
The proposal, announced by Ammar Benjama, Algeria's ambassador to the UN, declared every Palestinian is a target for death, extermination, and genocide.
We should ask ourselves how many innocent lives must be sacrificed before the Council deems it necessary to call for a ceasefire.
However, U.S. officials say they are working with Egypt and Qatar on negotiations with Israel and Hamas on a longer-lasting peace deal that would aim to release all the hostages. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, explained the Algerian proposal could upend those negotiations.
We believe that the resolution on the table right now would, in fact, negatively impact those negotiations. Demanding an immediate, unconditional ceasefire without an agreement requiring Hamas to release the hostages will not bring about a durable peace.
The United States is introducing a resolution of their own calling for a temporary ceasefire after Gaza has released all Israeli hostages. Meanwhile, Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels continue to attack commercial ships in the Red Sea and downed an expensive American drone this week. Pentagon spokesperson Sabrina Singh says their attacks are getting more sophisticated.
The first time that they used an underwater unmanned vehicle to try and launch an attack. So absolutely, the attacks are sophisticated, their weapons are sophisticated, and we know where they're coming from.
The attacks come as the United States and allies continue to pound Houthi rebels in air attacks of their own. The Middle East conflict is splitting Democrats in Congress. Politico reports Congressman Richie Torres is leaving the Progressive Caucus over their stance on Gaza. It comes as progressive leader Rashida Tlaib called for Michigan voters to vote uncommitted in that state's presidential primary next month and not vote for President Biden. John Stolness, Washington.
Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley says she will stay in the race against Donald Trump beyond the weekend's South Carolina primary. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports that at a rally, Haley blasted the former president's response to her husband serving overseas and critics who say she should end her primary challenge.
Nikki Haley is the last major Republican candidate running against Donald Trump in the 2024 presidential election, and she says she's not backing down.
I get the fact that the political class is putting this pressure on, but I also know the political class well. I know that there's this herd mentality, that they get pushed into doing it, and many of them just don't want to challenge that.
Haley has yet to win a GOP contest this election cycle, but she's vowed to stay in the running until Super Tuesday on March 5th. In an interview with the AP, Haley says that not enough people have voted in the election for her to back down yet.
Why would I do that when only at that point 4 states have voted? 10 days after South Carolina, another 20 states vote. I mean, this isn't Russia.
16 states will vote on Super Tuesday for their choice of party candidate in the 2024 presidential race.
He's serving on the other side of the world, where conflict is the norm, where terrorists hide among the innocent, where Iran's terrorist proxies are now attacking American troops.
Ahead of the South Carolina primary, Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley got emotional speaking about her husband, a military serviceman currently serving overseas. Michael Haley is on his second deployment with the South Carolina Army National Guard. She says she knows why her husband decided to serve.
The kids and I know why Michael went. He stepped up to keep us safe. And not just us. He stepped up to defend our nation's freedom and our way of life.
Haley raised $1 million last week in 24 hours after former President Donald Trump attacked her husband. She also vowed in her speech to stay in the presidential race through the South Carolina primary and Super Tuesday on March 5th. I'm Haya Panjwani.
2 arrests made in the deadly Super Bowl victory parade shooting in Kansas City. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports the investigation continues.
A local DJ was killed in the shooting during the Kansas City Chiefs championship parade. Now 2 men behind bars facing charges.
Murder in the second degree, felony murder. Again, the underlying felony for that felony murder is the unlawful use of a weapon.
Dominic Miller and Lindell Mays arrested for their alleged roles in the shooting that left at least 20 people shot.
Mays pulled his handgun first. Almost immediately. Jackson County Prosecutor Gene Peters Baker. Others pulled their firearms. Defendant Miller was one of those individuals.
Prosecutors asking anyone who was hurt during the parade that day to come forward as the DA builds its case.
I'm asking for individuals to help us who were at the rally, and they may have additional information to provide.
It's believed the shooting happened after a brief altercation. She says the investigation continues with the goal of holding every person responsible accountable.
Every single one. So while we're not there yet on every single individual, we're going to get there.
This after 2 juveniles were charged with gun-related and resisting arrest charges last week in connection to the parade shooting. Investigators insist their work isn't finished. I'm Clayton Neville.
WikiLeaks founder, one step closer to extradition to the U.S. when America in the Morning continues after these messages. I'm John Trout. This is America in the Morning. Update now on a story we brought you yesterday. 4 school committee members from a Massachusetts high school are asking the governor to send in National Guard troops. Pamela Furr explains.
These committee members say students at Brockton High School are causing chaos and disrupting the learning environment way too often. In fact, violence has been a recurring problem at that school. Last Thursday, 11 teenage students were arrested and criminally charged after a large fight broke out. Tony Rodriguez tells reporters,
"We did send a letter out to the mayor requesting support from the governor on requesting the National Guard be deployed to the city of Brockton to give us support."
He also says teachers are concerned there isn't enough staff to keep these kinds of fights from happening.
This isn't something that is negative. The National Guard does bring positivity. We use them to deploy COVID vaccinations. But where we are in the city of Brockton, with the deficit that created this mess, we're looking for support with the National Guard to come in and act as substitute teachers, hall monitors to make sure that the high school is safe. And it's not just the high school, it also includes our middle schools and elementary schools.
Now, Brockton Mayor Robert Sullivan has issued a statement saying he does not support using the National Guard at the school. Of course, only the governor has the power to deploy National Guard troops in the state. And so far, she has not indicated she would do so, but has said her administration is committed to ensuring schools are safe and supportive environments for students, educators, and staff. I'm Pamela Furr.
This could be the last legal maneuver for WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange and his lawyers to keep him from being extradited to the United States. Correspondent Karen Shamas reports.
Julian Assange's lawyers have opened a final UK legal challenge to stop the WikiLeaks founder from being sent to the United States to face spying charges. They argue that American authorities are seeking to punish him for exposing serious criminal acts by the US state. Outside the High Court in London, Assange's supporters crowded together chanting for his release. Assange's attorneys are asking judges to grant a new appeal, his last legal roll of the dice in Britain. His wife, Stella Assange, spoke to reporters outside the courthouse.
It's an attack on all journalists all over the world. It's an attack on the truth, and it's an attack on the public's right to know.
Assange has been fighting extradition for more than a decade, including 7 years in self-exile in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and the last 5 years in the high-security prison on the outskirts of the British capital. Karen Shamas, London.
Wisconsin Democrat Governor Tony Evers signed new legislative district maps into law that he proposed and that the Republicans who control the legislature passed in an effort to avoid having the liberal-controlled state Supreme Court draw the lines. Correspondent Jennifer King explains.
With the stroke of a pen, Wisconsin's Democratic Governor Tony Evers signed into law new legislative maps that will be in place for November's elections.
They're my maps, nothing more and nothing less.
Evers said he wanted the maps to be fair.
Republicans passed the maps I submitted.
Republicans have controlled the Wisconsin State House for more than a decade under the old 2011 maps that were recognized to be among the most gerrymandered in the country. But they voted to pass the governor's proposal to avoid having new and possibly even less favorable lines drawn by the state Supreme Court, which has a liberal 4-3 majority since the election of Justice Janet Protasewicz. Wisconsin State Senate Majority Leader Devin LeMahieu.
How can we sue on something that there isn't a decision by the state Supreme Court.
Audio courtesy WISN. Wisconsin Democrats hailed the chance to gain seats in the Senate and Assembly, although most of them were suspicious of the governor's plan and voted against it. I'm Jennifer King.
Just in time for spring and summer travel plans, it'll cost more to bring bags on an American Airlines flight. Ed Donahue has that story.
The fee for checking a bag on an American domestic flight goes from $30 to $35 online, $40 if checking in at the airport. A second bag will cost $45. American last raised bag fees in 2018. American also announced starting with tickets issued May 1st, customers will have to buy tickets directly from the airline or its partner carriers or from preferred online travel agencies if they want to earn points on the Advantage loyalty program. Corporate travelers won't be affected. The changes are part of a long shift by airlines away from using travel agents and paying them commissions and bringing ticket sales in-house. I'm Ed Donahue.
Last month, the first human cyborg received a brain chip that would allow him to interface with a computer. Today, it was reported that he is now controlling a computer mouse with only his thoughts. Chuck Palm has that in today's Tech Report.
The first patient to be implanted with a brain chip from Neuralink appears to have fully recovered and is able to control a computer mouse using nothing but their thoughts. Elon Musk said on X that the progress is good and the patient seems to have made a full recovery with no ill effects that we are aware of. Musk also said that they have great hopes for Neuralink, with their initial goal to help enable people to control a keyboard as well as treat conditions like obesity, autism, depression, and schizophrenia. Computer chip maker NVIDIA today briefly became Wall Street's most traded stock by value, surpassing Musk's Tesla, becoming the third most valuable U.S. company, proving that AI technology is a good bet. About $30 billion of NVIDIA shares has changed hands daily, on average over the past 30 sessions, pulling ahead of Tesla's $22 billion over the same period. Bitcoin trading over $52,000 today and exceeding $2 trillion market cap. Leave a comment at allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
America in the Morning continues with a check of midweek sports. Here's Robert Workman.
A day after becoming the first unanimous #1 team in men's college hoops this year, Connecticut got clobbered at number 15 Creighton 85-66. It's the Blue Jays' first win ever over a #1 and ends the Huskies' 14-game winning streak. Fifth-ranked Tennessee rallied to win at Missouri. Number 18 St. Mary's topped San Francisco. The Gales now with a 14-game winning streak, the longest in D1. The College Football Playoff Board of Managers approved a 5+7 model for next season's playoffs, with the 5 highest-ranked conference champions joined by the next 7 highest-ranked teams. The top 4 conference champs earn a first-round bye. Soccer, the U.S. women routed the Dominican Republic 5-0 in the opener of the CONCACAF W Gold Cup in Carson, California. Olivia Moultrie scored twice, her first goals ever for the national team. The U.S. will also take on Argentina and Mexico in the group stage. Hockey, the Panthers edged the Senators in overtime for their 6th win in a row. That moves Florida ahead of Boston into first place in the Eastern Conference. The Rangers have won 8 straight after stopping the Stars in a battle of division leaders. The league-leading Canucks have now dropped 3 in a row for the first time all season. Following a loss to the Avalanche, the Capitals crushed the Devils. 2 goals for Alex Ovechkin, the Great 8, now with 838. That's 56 away from Wayne Gretzky's all-time record of 894 goals. The Islanders nipped the Penguins in overtime. Wins for the Jets, Predators, and Kings. That's Wednesday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. When we return on America in the Morning, former president's boat sold, and a classic song goes to court. Those stories and more after these messages. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. Not 1, but 4 new movies will be heading into production about the lives and history of the Beatles. Correspondent Margie Zaraletta reports.
They're gonna put me in the movie. The Beatles will have not just one movie about them, but 4. Paul McCartney, John Lennon, Ringo Starr, and George Harrison will have their stories told from their perspectives in separate movies. Director Sam Mendes, known for films like American Beauty and Skyfall, will direct the 4 films. The movies are expected to be released in 2027 in a way that Sony describes as innovative and groundbreaking without giving details. The Beatles have been famously stingy about granting rights to their catalog, but they have given full rights to the music and their life stories. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
An auction was held and someone walked away with a speedboat once owned by a former president. Sailing in with that story, here's correspondent Norman Hall.
The 38-foot boat called Fidelity 5 was auctioned for $435,000 during the George and Barbara Bush Foundation's 2024 presidential salute. Last week's event benefited the George H.W. Bush Presidential Library and Museum and the Bush School of Government and Public Service at Texas A&M University. The boat's owner remains anonymous, and it's unclear what will become of the vessel. It sports a presidential seal and has 3 engines with a combined 900 horsepower. It can go up to 75 miles per hour and was used in the waters off Kennebunkport, Maine, where the Bush family has a summer retreat. I'm Norman Hall.
A court case out of New York City centers around a classic song. Our Kevin Carr has been following proceedings.
It was one of the biggest classic rock hits of all time. Now the Dark Desert Highway is having its day in court. Today in Manhattan, 3 men will be facing multiple charges, including conspiracy to possess stolen property, specifically handwritten lyric notes for the Eagles' 1976 song Hotel California, as well as more than 80 other pages of draft lyrics. Any time of year, you can find it here. Don Henley, one of the original members of the Eagles, claims the lyrics were stolen from them when writer Ed Sanders was working on the band's biography in the 1970s and 80s. Sanders, who is not charged in the case, has offered multiple conflicting stories of how the lyrics came into his possession. One story says he found them discarded in a dressing room. Another says he got them from a stage assistant. Yet another claims he got them from Eagles member Glenn Frey, who died in 2016 and thus can't confirm nor deny anything in court. Sanders eventually sold the pages to the defendants, Glenn Horowitz, Craig Enchardi, and Edward Kaczynski, who tried to resell them for a profit. The defense claims that Henley found starstruck lawyers to push the case from civil court to criminal court. Henley is expected to testify during a break from touring with the Eagles. I'm Kevin Carr.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, February 21st, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.